can you make the right decision? Can you make simple reads? And are you going hard? That's just like kind of the baseline for me. Because if you're not going hard, like it's hard to take you seriously. It's hard to put, because then my credibility comes into play.
Welcome to the Jamodi Podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is Jamodi, just a matter of doing it. Today we are joined by the recruiting analyst and director of business development of GASO, Ryan Massad. Ryan had the pleasure of playing at Highland Park High School for legendary coach David Peeler. He was a varsity assistant coach under Brad Mauser at Keller Timber Creek and Cleve Ryan at the Colony High School. His biggest accomplishment to date is leading the GASO rebrand initiative and helping design and facilitate the GASO Link Camp. He's also the designer and creator of the GASO Fast Break newsletter. Before we hear from Ryan, take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media at Jamodi Podcast.
Thank
you. There he is. What's up, Ryan?
I'm doing well, man. How are you?
Oh, living the dream. Living the dream here. How about you?
Dude, man, I'm doing well. I'm really excited to do this. My baby, I have a daughter due that's imminent. This is her due date today. So
oh my goodness. Like
may have to jump off at any moment. No,
yeah,
we're fine. We're expecting it to be a little bit late, but I have a little son, and then the baby daughter's coming here pretty soon. So we're exciting. I'm getting to work from home a lot more just during this time. But man, how are you?
Oh man, I'm good. First of all, congratulations on that, and man, no pressure. Like we have to be, concise here. We need to make sure we get this done on time, and
no doubt.
We'll really find out just how hardcore you are. Like if you finish the interview, even though like she's kind of going into labor, like that's hardcore.
Believe me, I would never do that. I would say I gotta go, but
that's fair. Well, man, thank you so much for giving up your time. This is an interesting one for me because I've met you before, at some GASOs, and we've had a few talks, but this really comes from a recommendation from our friend Coach Peeler. I asked him, who are some people that I need to, have these talks with and kind of to keep growing? And he was like, oh, Ryan's a guy you got to reach out to. So, I mean, that's to me, it's a pretty high recommendation there.
Man, I'll be honest with you. Coach Peeler thinks I'm a lot better than just about everybody in this world. He is the reason. Like I was being honest when I said, thank you so much for having me on, because I looked at your guest list and I was like, who doesn't belong? It's me. And Coach Peeler, honestly, man, I can honestly say he helped me get the job at Timber Creek under Brad Mauser, and then he helped me get the job under Cleve Ryan at the Colony. Like, he has been one of my biggest advocates, and he's the greatest guy in the world. Me and him keep up quite a bit.
Well, right off the bat, though, you've worked for, in my opinion, 3 outstanding coaches. I mean, Peeler's awesome. Mauser, I don't know if there's anybody else like him out there. And then Coach Ryan. I mean, I played for him at the Colony when he was I think a sophomore coach back when I was actually at sophomore JV at the Colony, but just kind of been intertwined with him over the years. So like that's a pretty impressive list though of guys to work for.
Yes, I have felt honored. Like I said, I backed into every one of these jobs because of Peeler. Like, I got to skip the football portion of coaching, which, like, that's the luckiest rite of passage. Not that I don't love football, like, but I don't know a thing about it. So, but yeah, I mean, I kind of, when I look back upon my coaching career, I kind of break it up into phases. And I was at Timber Creek for 3 years, and the way I describe Mauser is he taught me how to work, man, and I learned so much. I just, like, when I moved to the Colony, I was ready. There was no, like, when I interviewed for Cleve, I laid out, here's summer plans, here how we're going to work out, here's the fall, this is what we're going to do in off season, here's the weight room, here's this, and this. I was just ready because Mauser had prepared me so well from that. And then when I moved from Cleve is so just so good at the big picture and how to connect with every individual on just on any level. And he was incredible at just running a program from top to bottom. And I felt like he gave me the keys to the kingdom at the colony. He said, I want you to push the boundaries however you want to push them. I want you to put your stamp on the colony. Like, you're a part of this program, and I want you to make your mark. And he allowed me to do that. So it was really incredible. And then I played for Peeler, who is like just a genius, man.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
just a genius.
How long were you at the colony? What years?
I was there 2018 and 19, and then 19 and 20.
Okay.
And we had a shot both years, man. Like, we were pretty good. You know how it goes in the playoffs. You hope you have a shot. And we kind of felt like in every game that we played in, we had a shot. We lost to Mansfield Timberview in 19, and then
They were pretty good that year.
yeah. We held them to 52, but we didn't score the ball very well.
Yeah.
And then we played that final year. We lost to Colleyville Heritage in the first round. We were 18-4, and then our point guard got in some trouble, and just our season kind of went off the wheels a little bit. We had an 18-4 start. We were pretty darn good, and we felt really good about that team. But man, we competed. We put our power forward at point guard. He's now a
Nice.
college football receiver, and like, it was actually, me and Cleve looked at each other and we were like, we got to find a way to be effective and efficient. And it was really, really fun years. And I kind of shifted, if you don't mind me. The reason I went into GASO is because Cleve told me at the beginning of my time at the colony, like, hey, my job is to get you out of here in 3 to 5 years. I want you to be a head coach, because that was my aspiration at the time. And just my priorities shifted. My wife and I kind of looked at what it took to really run an entire program, and we decided that wasn't for me, man. And the goal was to stay in hoops, and luckily I got brought on board with GASO.
Yeah, I was curious to see, just knowing some of your coaching background, what was the path that took you to the GASO. And I mean, I completely get that, and especially at at that level of the colony or Highland Parks. I mean, you talk about running a program. It is the feeder system, like leading up into junior high. It's having your hand completely into the junior high program, and then through the high school program. So yeah, the amount of time and effort, dedication to it is incredible. But then, it's amazing. You went from 3 great coaches there to then an amazing group of guys, with Blue and Sam, all those guys that are just incredible. You always have to mention Coach Kuhnstad himself that created the whole thing. So that's pretty cool that you got in the door there.
Yes. So what happened was, it was kind of funny. I actually coached Sam's son at Timber Creek under Mauser.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
And Sam and I it was funny. We were at a GASO fall classic, and Sam ran to lunch with me and Mauser after it, or I think it was, I don't know how it worked, but he came with us, and we were talking, and I'm a basketball junkie, and I was just like, tell me about TJ Ford, tell me about Emeka Ogumore, tell me about blah 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 blah, just down the line. And he was like, dude, he was like, you're 8 when you're talking James Thompson, like talking about some of these guys. And I grew up a Longhorn fan, so I did go to Baylor, so we're tracking there. But I grew up a Longhorn fan, so that's kind of just where I started. Because Sam,
those are some great names that you rattled off. They're names that terrorized me. So yeah, appreciate that.
That's funny. That's good stuff. But point is, I just was rattling off to him, how much I knew, how much I loved basketball, and I just wanted his opinion on everything. His son Cameron and I had a great relationship. Got to see him sophomore, junior, and senior, and he graduated. And then Sam and I stayed in touch. Got to meet Blue at state championships. And kind of the pivot there was at the colony, when I kind of realized that my wife and I had this conversation, and our mindsets had shifted to what I wanted to do in my career. I said, well, I want to stay in basketball. And she was like, how can you do that? And I was like, well, I've played in GASOs. I've coached in GASOs. I love GASOs. I know Sam and Blue. But I'm sure a lot of people feel that way. A lot of people.
I feel like I'm good friends with Blue, but he I think he has the ability to make, and not in a fake way. I don't know. He's
No,
as real as you get. He just has that ability to make you feel comfortable. Like I've known this guy for a long time.
yes. I mean, we call him Chief Communicating Officer. He's incredible. Like my job, it's actually turned into one of my jobs is what can I take off Blue so he can do more of that because he's
Mm.
so good at it. But kind of my thing with that is like I'm sure they get hit up for jobs all the time. That's pretty awesome job. So I went to Baylor, like I said, I got a business degree, and I kind of put together a an 8-page like outline of how I was going to help their bottom line, how I was going to help their business, why it was them I wanted to work for, and what I could do to add value essentially. And they were they're all ears, like you said. They're so personable. They're so
Hmm.
good. They're such good people. They probably thought the first time I was meeting with them that I was crazy. But I laid some stuff out to them, and the conversation just kind of continued, and they kind of shaped it how what they were looking for, and they were kind of looking to expand is the wrong word, but like starting to be more open to it because their business was growing. So struck lightning in the bottle again and backed into something else. Um, and it was during COVID, and they kind of looked at me and said, here's what it's got to be right now. And I just said, I'm all in. So I'd made the jump. My wife was incredibly supportive
That's
and
huge.
amazing, and she made it happen just as much as those guys did. So really cool story, and I've been with them for now 3 years. So the job is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I've been able to kind of watch from afar and just I have been able to see your hand through whether it's the podcast that you guys do, which is awesome. I love the way that you highlight um, high school sports, high school athletes, and coaches, and high school teams, and but also diving in obviously into the select world because it is so important. I mean, I think athletes have two seasons now. They have their high school season and their select season, and they have to be dealt with like that. It's not like high school ball stops in February, March, but then now high school ball for next year begins. No, like my job to supplement that and help them through that process. But I feel like you guys have such a great balance of how you work with both. It's impressive to me.
Man, I appreciate you saying that. That's a Blue and Sam are very um, big. I mean, it started, sorry, I'll start here. It started as a high school coaches thing, and it has
Mm-hmm.
obviously grown into a year-round basketball thing. And the goal of GASO really is to cultivate relationships on all these different fronts. You've got high school coaches, you've got summer coaches, you've got college coaches, you've got um, all these different relationships that you're trying to mesh together and help people understand um, the entirety of the story that is a year of Texas high school or Texas high school basketball and grassroots basketball and
Yeah.
college. So it's really fun that we get to be a part of something that's special and that it faces so many fronts.
Yeah, and I really do. I feel an alignment a little bit with you. Like I never, I mean, before May of last year, I never really thought of doing podcasts or anything like this before, but I've always loved talking hoops. I've loved talking with coaches and learning about how they do what they do. And it just started. I thought there are so many great high school coaches in Texas and DFW alone, but then
Sure.
you get down to Houston and San Antonio, all these that unless you win state, they don't really have a platform to share what they're doing. And then on top of it, you have amazing college coaches around here. You got skilled coaches that have great voices, and then also into the select world. So my goal, kind of like yours, is to give all of these different coaches from different areas of voice and of ability to share what they do, and so yeah, I kind of appreciate what you guys are doing and feel like I'm trying to do something similar just with on the coaching side.
No, I think it's fantastic. Like I told you, I was blown away by your guest list, and I got the chance to listen to a few of them. Brian Burton's was my favorite. Like it was
Nice.
so good. I thought it was a really great episode. But I think what you're doing, connecting people, and then understanding that all these worlds are interconnected. Like that is such a big deal. And I'll keep hitting on Cleve because he was so good at it, but he had such a good relationship with some of our best players, AAU coaches,
Yeah.
um, and he said, how can we work together to do what's best for fill in the blank player? And that's where that clicked with me. And then I've seen it obviously with Salmon Blue.
Yeah, it takes a village to help these athletes out. I think the days of, and I felt this when I was younger, starting out with Naaman Forrest with Jeff Clarkson, moving to Wes Watson and McKinney, and I think if I'm not careful, I'll still be guilty of these are my players. Be careful, stay away from my guys. And first of all, they're their parents' kids. They're not mine. And I can't look at them like that. But then also too, I'm not the only one that has input and is helping them on this journey. So I mean, I mean it, like from parents to high school coaches, select coaches to skilled coaches out there, and then also to guys like you that have a direct hand and influence in how players can get recognized and how they can be seen or get exposure in exposure in the good sense. Because unfortunately, I think that word is thrown around a ton, and they're getting exposed more than getting exposure. But you're giving them a really, and basketball in general, a really cool avenue and platform. I love that, to learn about people's daily routines or things that they're actively learning, or cool things they're finding out. So what are some of the best things that you've borrowed lately?
Man, can I give you two?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be one. Yeah.
Okay. First is an app called Notion. Have you ever heard of Notion?
No.
It is the most incredible app I've ever used in my life. And basically, you can organize your whole life how you want to do it um, in this app. And I'll be happy to share more with you. So this is going to
Yeah,
sound like
keep
an
going.
advertisement,
Yeah.
but essentially, I have my projects, I have my what I'm trying to get done this week, what I'm trying to get done today, and then what's going to be done in the future. And I've kind of prioritized that list. And then I have check boxes for, hey, did I work out? How many times am I trying to work out? How many times am I getting up in the morning and spending time with the Lord? So on and so forth. And I kind of have this big, just sheet. I'm looking at it right now. I have this podcast in with your questions, and um, I kind of wrote out my little story, but it's just a really helpful platform. You can set reminders, you can link it to a whole bunch of stuff. So Notion is one. On a
Okay.
more like mental front, I would say the app, it's built in the iPhone. It's called Focus,
Hmm.
and it's like the do not disturb, but you can customize it. And so I have work, I have do not disturb, and I have family. And to be able to shut off and have a balanced life, this phone is such a weapon, and it's
Hmm.
fighting against me.
Hmm.
Is what I've realized. So being able to utilize those and putting my focus on at 8 p.m. and unless it's an emergency, I have like 3 or 4 people who can call me. I'm not going to hear from anybody. So that's been so helpful for me, and just chunking out those times that's made for family. Like basketball nerd matching with parenting, I have a shot clock over my kid's head, just like it's counting down, man. And there's a finite number of days. I read an
Hmm.
article how you spend 95% of the time you're ever going to spend with them from ages 0 to 18. So I want to be fully present, fully in the moment, and utilizing technology for the good is something I'm super passionate about because, being a
That
teacher, yeah.
that's really good, and I celebrate you in figuring it out already at a young age. Because my both my boys are 16 and 14, and I don't know if I was that aware, of all of the time that I might have been wasting or not really being intentional with them. So that's awesome. The Focus app, are there people that so you can restrict or allow calls or texts to come through during that time when you
Yes.
want to kind of block some?
Yes. So like for notifications, I can turn on like during work, I have my whole work team that can contact me, my wife, my mom, and my dad. That's it. Like
Hmm.
And then, I try and make breaks throughout the day where I'm checking email and checking text. But if something's always trying to grasp for my attention, I'm not focused on anything.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be a slave to this phone, man. Like it's so easy to just get engulfed. Like I don't have Twitter on my phone. I don't have any of those things.
Really?
Yes, I add them for like when I go out to scout a game, I'll add it
Okay.
so I can like talk about the game, but then I delete it right when I get home. I
That's
only use it.
incredible because I was thinking about with what you do with GASO and how you guys have been so intentional. I mean, I feel like the last 4 or 5 years, and probably since you've come on, there's just been a shift of, I feel like you guys are posting consistently and you're in feeds, which that's the whole struggle with growing anything on there is the consistency that you have to, it just can't be random. And
Right.
so for you to be so present in that arena, but disconnected too, that's impressive.
Man, it's I just know who I am and what my bins are. Like if I allow myself to keep it on my phone, I'm gonna be on it all the time.
Yeah.
you know, and understanding that was a big first step. I took a 12-step discipleship program out of college. I took the victory lap year, like the quarter life crisis year. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. And it actually ended up being one of the best years of my life because I learned how to identify what was going on in my life and why I was feeling the way I was feeling. And then also, inventorying that like daily, like going through daily. Hey, here's what I felt. Why did I feel that? Let's dig into that a little bit more. And it's something my wife and I practice every single night. We go through our inventory that day. And so it's not by chance. It's by God's grace alone and understanding that like a time in my life where I was so lost and so just not calculated about anything I did. And it turned into something really, really cool, which has allowed me to be, like you said, super intentional with my wife and my kids and my job. And so I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah. Well, Jim Rohn said that you run the day or the day will run you. And I think so many, and I'm guilty of it too. So many
Sure.
people, the weekend will go by and you're like, golly, I mean, I'm not really prepared for this week. Where did my time go? When you have these tools like that, and for players especially, because players will tell me, I didn't have time to do this or that to work on my game. And so let's look at your time. How much was spent with this? How much was spent, playing? How much was spent watching TV? We really do have so many time wasters in our lives. But then also having the ability to actually slow down. Like it's amazing how, I mean, I love doing this because I didn't really know some of the avenues we would get to go down and talk about, but this is really successful people seem to have this in common is that they control their time and what they're using it. And I like the learning about these tools that are out there that I didn't necessarily know about.
Well, let me give you this caveat. These are on my best days. Like this is not how it always goes. I'm still a mess. I'm still a disaster some days. But on my best days, I get to see the kind of the fruit of the um, the rest that Jesus talks about in Matthew. Just like he teaches us how to live, and that's to take time, that's to slow down, that's to be intentional with who you're talking to, who you're spending time with, what you're doing, what you're paying attention to. Pay attention what you're paying attention to. And when those things go well, um, like I just it's a God's grace thing,
Yeah.
and it comes out very clearly when those things are going well.
Yeah, Jesus is Lord of the Sabbath, and so as believers, we're not bound by that Old Testament commandment anymore.
Right.
But it's still a great practice for life. And I was listening to a guy the other day that talked about how he takes the Jewish Sabbath from Friday night through Saturday night, turns his phone off completely, and he made a comment, and I think this is important for all of us to remember, is that whenever he does that, the world doesn't end. It doesn't stop. And,
Right.
when he turns his phone back on, he's got the 600 texts or whatever he said that, that he has to go through at that point. But he's like, the benefits from taking that time away, disconnecting, have been huge. So maybe this focus app, because one thing I've always worried about, being a parent, or if I'm not with my wife, Jana, like, or my mom, or anybody, like, what if there is an emergency and I have that off? Well, that
Right.
focus app might be the connecting piece that I was needing to. But all good, all cool things to talk about, man.
Love it. I love it, man. I could talk about this. I'm just as passionate about this as I am about basketball, man.
Yeah, well, I think if we're not passionate about our daily habits, Tim Ferriss is one of my favorite guys to listen to, because he's constantly interviewing people about what the best do daily, and there do seem to be common threads. But then a guy like Mano Watsa, president of PGC, and he's just an incredible human being, so intentional every morning, and he has like this hour and a half, 2 hour daily routine that he goes through. But he had a great reminder too, is stop comparing, and because comparison is the thief of all joy. Make these routines work for you to start your day out with a win, but don't feel like you have to, all right, this is what you do, wham, today I'm going to start with all of these, because you'll fail in that way.
For sure. And it's a buildup. I mean, like, just like anything else, like if you're working out, don't go try to build Rome today. Just start slow.
Same with the negative habits as well, because on the same thing, like, don't let a week or two, or don't have sugar with every meal, and have that because it'll start to build the opposite way. So like, building those great habits, start small, ripping great habits out, get them when they're small. I think it's the same. You can think the same way.
Absolutely.
The Jamodi podcast is powered by Sideline Interactive. Sideline Interactive is the leading manufacturer for high-quality, innovative scoring tables and LED video display boards that help coaches and schools bring more excitement to fans, create huge fundraising opportunities, and make their jobs easier. Visit sidelineinteractive.com to check out their amazing products. You get to be around and watch a lot of players play, coaches coach, and you've had some cool experiences with coaching on yourself. What are some qualities that you see that are kind of common in great leaders?
Man, this is an easy one because I've worked for some great leaders, but expectation and boundary setting have been the clearest picture for a great leader for me. I find personally that I'm most upset when my expectations are met. And whether that be in coaching, I thought I was going to get to do this or that, or I go into a game with like seeing like maybe I'm excited to see somebody play and they don't play well, or just however it is. When my expectations aren't met, there always seems to be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So when expectations are kind of set, we have a saying around the office, me and Blue at least, we always say under promise and over deliver. And what we do by that is we want to just set the expectations at what it is, and we don't want to ever overpromise anything that we can do. We just want to tell them the truth at the baseline level. And if we have an opportunity to over deliver, we're going to do it.
I think that's huge for sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you go.
I think that's huge for coaches. Anytime you say something, or I don't care what space it's in, I think I look at it from that coach's perspective of when I'm talking with parents or players. I think that's a huge thing to set appropriate expectations. Like, you have to set them, because lack of expectations, then what did Kelvin Sampson say? Like, you got to know where you're going, or else anywhere will take you, or any way will take you there. And like, we need our players to know what the expectations are, parents, but then set them realistically, and be careful about setting expectations or promising things that you really can't deliver on, because then you lose credibility and trust.
Yeah, and you're kind of put in a box. And then to the other side of that, the boundary side of that, I'll use I guess it's something that I'm going through right now. I've got a 2.5-year-old, and we don't have a backyard, so we play in the front yard. and I'm setting the guy up for failure. Like I'm just telling him no all day. And I feel horrible for it, but like I've got to be a vigilant parent. There's the street right there with cars and all these dangerous things. Whereas if we did have a backyard, I'd build him a fence, right? It'd be a fence there, and the guy could do whatever he wanted within the fence. And how much more freedom would that be for him and for me if we have these boundaries set in place for him?
Hmm.
So likening it to my job, you know, just kind of our values of who we are. We're gonna be professional, and there are things we're gonna do. And Sam always tells me you can push the boundaries however you want, but we just got to stay professional. So like that gives me a great fence to play in, to kind of liken that example.
That's a good point, and I think like style of play is
There you go.
an area where I anytime I think of boundaries and control, people tend to think of a slower style where the coach is joysticking. I like that term, joysticking, making every call for a player. But as our style is running and gunning, shooting a lot of threes and playing fast and getting the best shot as fast as possible. And
Right.
but within that system, like there are clear cut boundaries that our players know that they can play within, but that just makes it more fun. Like that's my whole point. I think is boundaries are set up not to steal joy away, but allow us to find that joy in those parameters.
Yeah, boundaries are set for flourishment. Like you're gonna flourish like within this. If you operate within this, it's gonna go really, really, really well for you. And I think likening it to a system of how you play, I think that makes so much sense because these kids know what they can do and what they can't do, and if they're crossed, it's easy. They understand, or the
Yeah.
team understands, and they can hold them accountable.
And like you said too, it all kind of circles back to the expectations. You
Yeah.
said what's the most frustrating thing is when expectations aren't met. I think when there's no boundaries, how in the world can you really set expectations? And then you end up just getting you get a player or anybody who is feels unfulfilled because they never really knew what it meant to be successful or how they could be successful in the first place. I think that translates into man almost every area in life.
Yeah, and I think it also falls back to communication because this overarching, if you're an elite communicator, then expectations will be told, boundaries will be made, and conflict, which will happen, not if, will happen, will be resolved.
I want to go into you as an evaluator a little bit because as coaches, when I watch my guys like at a GASO, I mean, I'm just watching them like a parent almost, that tunnel vision. And I believe in them. I feel like I know what their skill base is, but then you kind of are coming in, you're one person trying to, let's just say there's 200 guys in an event, trying to give them all a good look. What are some things that players do that jump out at you in a positive way that they can kind of catch your attention with?
Yeah, and I wear a coach's lens almost too much in this sometimes because I have my preferred style of play, which would
Hmm.
be sort of like a dribble drive. We're getting paint touches, like that's constantly what we're doing. So I sometimes box a kid in to what, hey, they wouldn't fit my system, so I don't like them as much. But I'm slowly learning that's just not how it works
Right.
sometimes. Um, you know, there's a lot of levels to this. So when I talk to a college coach, I always try to ask him, hey, what are you looking for? Like, what do y'all run offensively? What are you looking to do defensively? So I take down those notes. And then when I go to a game, I'm looking the first step, man. Are you a good decision maker? Like, is your IQ already there? Can do you understand and can you make the right decision? Can you make simple reads? And are you going hard? That's just like kind of the baseline for me. Because if you're not going hard, like it's hard to take you seriously. It's hard to put because then my credibility comes into play. And if you're not playing hard, I'm just going to be like, no, like my credibility is on the line for this one. The next thing is I need to be able to know, can this kid understand what's trying to be done within what they're doing? And I'm watching. I scouted for years, so I can see the sets. I'm watching what they're doing. I'm trying to figure out what they're doing, and I'm uh, trying to distinguish what the player's doing. So if they're doing those types of things, awesome. And then dribble, pass, and shoot. If you can dribble and you can pass and you can shoot, like if you can do those things on a pretty good level, that's awesome. And then here's where kind of the level differentiating changes: how good you are at those individual things, and then what genetically you have been given. You know, that's I'm 5'8". Like I did not hit the genetic lottery. I tried to maximize my game. I could shoot, I could dribble, I could pass, but because I was so limited genetically, I had a ceiling, and that's okay. So it's kind of this big pot of stew where you're throwing in all these things of what a kid's good at, and you have these ideas and predispositions and preconceptions, and you try and just kind of see at what point or what level can this kid play based on
Hmm.
all these determining factors. And what you start to find out is you see very similar players year in and year out, and you kind of get this grasp for what level they are, what level they belong to, and who they are as a player, and what their player arc is.
I think that's a great point. There's a lot to unpack there.
Sorry, yeah,
No,
that
no,
was
it's good
really
stuff. I love. I think you're right on the money. Those of you that are evaluating players year after year, I mean, I just would imagine you're rarely surprised. You're rarely surprised when you've seen a player, you've kind of their skill set where they're at, they're in a groove, and they maybe continue to improve, but you nailed it. Like IQ is something that can be seen pretty quick. And I love the fact that the guys at GASO, you have good basketball minds behind what you're doing. Guys that have coached, guys that have been around the game and really know it. So you can see their IQ with their decision making, and do they fit into or are they working through schemes that are being played? Also, you're right on the money. Like I hope, I don't know how many players listen to this or parents, but and even if coaches hear it, like getting reinforced that effort. Back in the day, I've heard a coach, effort wasn't a skill. Everybody just did that for the most part. But now I believe effort is a little bit more of a skill. And if you can acquire that ability just to go hard, like you said, to give, who was it? Somebody the other day, I think it was Monowatsa. He said, we got to get away from saying 100%. Like nobody can do that. Nobody can give 100%. You also can't give 110%. That doesn't exist. He said 87%. You need to get people giving 87% because one, it's realistic. It is going hard. There's a little bit they can give a little bit more, but they can definitely give a little bit less. So that's sorry, just a little bit, a little
no, I like
tangent there.
that.
Just hey guys, I'm going to try it next year, guys. Listen, you got to give 87% today. Just kind of see what the looks are like. But then there's this whole other factor of what's not fair, and
Yeah.
life is not fair. And if you're desiring fair treatment, you're desiring to be mediocre. And there is a big difference between 5'11" and 6'3", a really big difference. And I think it's important for people to hear those things that you listed that jump out at you that go into this process.
Yeah, no, it's definitely interesting, and at the end of the day, it's still subjective. Like there are players that Blue likes better than I do, and there are players that I like better than Blue does, or Sam, or so on and so forth. Like the arguments we have in the office, it's a lot of fun. We're going to bat for the guys we really really like watching, which is really cool. But yeah, like you said, at the end of the day, a certain level of skill and effort has to be in it. There are some things that I do feel like can be taught, but there are some instinctual things too that are like, man, this guy just has it. And
Mm,
what is it?
yeah.
And you know it when you see it, but it's hard to define it. And like I said, it's subjective, and I'm not always right, and I have these preconceived notions, of what I personally like in a player, or what I would try and design, in what my favorite style of play was. So, in dribble drive, you can dribble, pass, and shoot. You're pretty good.
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
so Um, you know,
How much does so I'm a huge I mean I worked for PGC for years and when I coach I love to talk about intangibles or some of those things that don't necessarily show up in the stat sheet. I don't think playing hard is really an intangible because when you do play hard it'll show up in the stat sheet most of the time. There'll be products from that or byproducts of that. And so but when you're watching players and you just see a guy that is communicating well with his teammates, does bring a level of spirit, and seems to have joy in the game. Does get on the floor, hustles, takes charges. Like, how much does that weigh on you? Maybe my eye will follow this player a little bit more and maybe lead to see what can he shoot, can he dribble, can he do those other things?
oh, for sure. That just pops because those are the things that I'd say 95% of kids aren't doing consistently. And if there's one kid on the floor doing it, naturally it's easy to pull for a kid like that too. And like you said, watch them a little bit deeper and say, oh, I'm going to mark that kid and I'm going to come back to that. You know what I'm saying? Um, it's like I said, there's so many factors going into it, but from an eye-catching like standpoint, 100%, like 100% that kid will get a double take, and and if he can do stuff, it's easy to sell that kid too,
Mm-hmm.
to say, hey, this guy can shoot and can dribble and pass, and then he can do all these other things. Like, and he's going to win you a game. Like Marcus Smart's just, I mean, easy example, but great example. On the NBA level, he may not. All the little things he does is just phenomenal. Like where he stunts and sits in the gap, but sprints to a skip, and like he's just like it's absolutely incredible. And there's a reason, through his shooting woes through his first couple seasons, he was
Yeah.
still on the floor.
Mm.
That he made a team win. He found a way to win.
Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Shoot 360. The future of basketball has arrived in Dallas-Fort Worth. Shoot 360 combines the latest sports technology with the fundamentals of basketball skill development. The result is a one-of-a-kind video game-like basketball program designed to improve your shooting, dribbling, and passing. Visit shoot360dfw.com to learn more and register for your free 1-hour workout evaluation. Shoot 360, the future of basketball is here. So individual skill work does need to be
Yep.
a part of every high school practice. What are some areas, and I want you to talk a little bit about basketball decision training,
Yes.
BDT. What are some areas that you feel like players really need to focus on?
Yes. So Twitter like opened my eyes to this. It's like a free university. Like there's so much stuff you can learn from Twitter. And there's this like kind of European model that we have that I feel like Americans teach upside down, or I guess I would say Europeans teach upside down from the American model, where the American model is, hey, let's teach the skills to get by someone, and then let's see what happens. Whereas I feel like the European model is focused on, hey, coach will provide the action, but we've got to be elite at what happens after the advantage.
Hmm.
And so I think two factors in skill development that just aren't hit on enough are the mental aspect. And I can break that down into two ways: understanding and reading how to play with an advantage. So 5-on-4, and then where's the help coming from, how are they playing the screen, those things I don't feel like are ever really hit on. And then the other portion of that is shot quality
Hmm.
and defining that for the kids. It kind of goes back to our expectations. When I was at the Colony, Cleve kind of let me go crazy on this. I said, I want a shot chart on shot quality, not makes. So we defined for each player what a 5 was, what a 3 was, what a 1 was, and what a 0 was. A 0 is just a turnover. And for our 3-point shooters, a 5 is an inside out 3. Um, we called a 5 a transition 3 because we had such a good opportunity at offensive rebounding. And there were a couple other factors. A 3 is for the kid who shoots around 40% from the mid range. Because if you're shooting 33% from the 3 and you're shooting 40% from the mid range, yeah,
Yep.
we're
Yep.
getting a higher point per possession on the makes of a 3.
Mm-hmm.
Um, So like we would define a 5.3 and 1, and we wanted our GPA to be about 4. Our team shot quality GPA to be around 4. So we were so focused on helping them understand who they were as a player on the offensive end, and then we shot charted. And then by the end, the kids understood who was good at what, and then they started holding each other accountable to it. And so those two factors, were just incredible for our kids and our ball movement, because we started understanding who was good at what, and what that really did is it helped kids flourish to be like, hey, this is what you're really good at. Let's feast on that. Let's find a way to feast on that. And I think the way you do this is through small sided games. Like, I am just the biggest advocate in the world for them. So within the individual skill, there's time for dribble, pass, shoot. Of course, those are things that you have to get better at. But as a coach, you have to also be able to provide ways to grab advantages, for your team. And so what you do with those advantages really, really, really matter. And I think that's individual skill development for your brain.
Yeah.
You've got to understand what to do, when to do, why to do.
Skill development is really it's a huge umbrella. But I think so many times when, like, just speaking as a high school coach, if I think skill development is when people say that, they think ball, cone, med ball, some of these things. Now, personally, that I do love and I do at Faith, but I teach the game behind it.
Sure.
I think the other part of skill development is taking apart offensively what you do and helping those players through, like you just said, through those actions and those decisions. Because how often, I mean, I go to watch a select practice, or even, some practices probably that I used to do, where, guys, here's our offense, here's how it works, let's do it 5-on-0, and now go play. And I'm expecting them to, in the moment, with defense and with things happening quick, to make those reads and to
Yeah.
transfer or to move the ball the way that I feel like it should happen. And those small sided games, or treating skill work like that, I think helps them get there quicker.
Absolutely. Like, to your point, like, that was kind of my first thing. I would roll it out and say 5-on-0, and then I wouldn't realize why they couldn't get the intricacies of a slip versus when to curl, when to flare, like how to read these screens, and like how to communicate with the screener. Like, I was just like, can't y'all see it, kind of deal. And then I started saying, okay, let's make this 2-on-2. Let's make this 3-on-3. And then, we had this game that we called it World Cup, and there was a passer on the right wing, passer on the left wing, and then there was 2-on-2 with a couple groups behind the basket. And it was the first one of 12, and it was always initiated with a screen, a pin down, and then you played out of it. And then if you scored, you kept going on, and everybody was keeping score at 12. And then I realized, man, these kids are picking up how to read screens really quickly. And then you grow it to a third guy where there's a helper, and then you can now skip it, or now you can, and building those. It's like math. It just builds on itself.
Yeah.
And when you do the 5-on-0, man, I'm not sure how many kids are getting better.
And also, I don't think there's very few players that have the imagination naturally to make 5-on-0 feel real.
Sure.
And so, even as much as I have tried to tell guys over the years, like, listen, like, when you're in 5-on-0, look like a player, do things, visualize a defender in front of you, be sharp, be hard. It's just hard to get them there. And the cool thing about small sided games too is that you're also working on the defensive side without having to do shell, which is the 5-on-0 version on the other side of the ball, and can be a huge time waster. Which, the fact that I said that, probably half the people's clicked off this episode. But you can, as much as we work on offensive skill with small sided games, you're also working on defensive skill, disadvantaged defensive situations, which you see if you really watch basketball and the amount of paint touches that are happening now. The moment that help side defender comes, you're in a zone, and players have to be reacting on the fly to the ball, not second guessing, not waiting for movement. You're working on both sides.
Absolutely. And it's playing. It's fun for the kids. You're competing. There's so many fun, like, aspects. It kind of bleeds into you we were going to talk about like if I could start over, what would I
Yeah.
do?
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
I I had an AAU team my last summer. We played in GASOs, of course. And what I did, I was given a half court because there were 17s and 16s for a full court, and I just said I want to try some stuff out. That's the reason I was doing it. I didn't take I only it was a very low paying gig, but I coached for Triumph, and my goal in doing that was to learn and to see if I could do some things differently and have better results. And so I was given a half court, and I just designed. We practiced twice a week, and I designed 2 hours of small sided games. We were going to run a dribble drive, and we would just play small sided games for 2 hours. The kids loved it. It was
Mhm.
2-on-2, 3-on-3, 4-on-4 the entire time. And I've never had the ball move so much in such little practice. And so if I could go back and do it when I had tons of time, was I would develop it for skill for dribbling. Like I'd start with a retreat dribble to get space, and now we're playing one on one. Like I would incorporate small sided games into every single aspect of my game or of my practice, and that's what would be our practice, man. And I feel like the competition would go up, or I saw it happen
Yeah.
in a summer setting, um, and I just, man, I've fallen in love with that. The kids get so much better. It allows their imagination to be unlocked. They are engaged. You spread it out, play on, six different baskets, and now you got 2-on-2-on-2, and now you how many kids is that? That would be six kids each. 36 kids in the gym, and everybody's engaged. That's hard to
Mm.
do, man.
Yeah.
So that would be my number one, like hands down. We would be playing so much more in in a controlled environment, but it would still be playing.
I think it'll make us better as coaches too, make us sharper, because there's an art and a science to coaching. The
Yeah.
science is shot selection, scale, things like that, using analytics. The fact that we want to get the ball to the paint, and so we need to make sure our players know those concepts when we're setting up these small sided games, because it's not just what you see at the rec, which is, hey, let's play 2-on-2, or let's play 1-on-1 with unlimited dribbles. So
Right.
there are rules behind what we're doing, but then the art of coaching gets to come out where now I get to really just see individually where players need help and how I can help them, and so I just think it makes us better in the long run.
Absolutely. The nuance of it matters so much. It's just like the shot quality thing. If I have a kid shooting 55% on a mid range pull up, I'm not going to tell him he needs to shoot more threes. We're already very efficient from the mid range. Like we're going to foster that, and we're going to find a way to make that happen for him rather than, hey, you manipulate to me, because that's now a five. You know what I'm saying? Like in the big scheme of like what we were doing, we had a kid who could really knock down mid ranges, and he was like, "Man, are you telling me to shoot threes?" I'm like, "No, you're awesome at the mid range. We want you getting to this spot. Like, let's figure out ways how to do it."
Yeah.
So you're right. Like the art and the nuance of it is taking every individual kid for who he is and what he's good at and his strengths and his weaknesses, and trying to form that into what's best for your team and program as well.
Where did you get the idea behind a shot scale? Because I get to talk with coaches quite a bit about shooting. It's one of my favorite things to discuss, or offense. Nobody ever asked me to talk about defense, and I'm okay with that.
Me too.
And the first thing I always start with is shot selection. When I'm talking with people, they'll ask, "How do you guys? What shooting games do you guys do for all the threes that you?" Okay, I have a ton of those, but let's start with the main thing. And we have a scale that we use. I took our scale from PGC, and you're right on the money. Our fives probably would be your fives would be considered our seven, which is an uncontested jump shot within their range, and that within their range part is really important to find out, and that's where shooting games can come into play.
Oh
But
yeah.
a guy like you, that your guy who's shooting jump shots or mid-range jump shots, if our scale was a 7 or a 5 is wide open threes, that eliminates something from his game that is dangerous and really good. Where did your scale come from, or your thought process and we need this?
conversations with Peeler and some of my buddies, like and Cleve and um, I can't like put my finger on exactly where it came from, but we just knew like our kids didn't understand a good shot from a bad shot. And a kid responding, "Why is that a bad shot?" I realized my process has got to change because he doesn't understand what's a good process to a bad shot.
You're so right on the money. One of the toughest things for a player is to not know what a good shot is for him. And we have to eliminate that verbiage right there, the vague language of, hey guys, only great shots right now. Listen, in a timeout, hey guys, listen, we're taking bad shots. You got 5 teenagers that all think that their shots are great, that their teammates' shots are bad. So obviously, coach isn't talking to me; he's talking to him. And so we have to eliminate that. I think it's a huge. Anytime I go to a game and I just hear that's a bad shot, well, that's our fault. Obviously, we haven't taught shot selection, and it's also one of the most personal things. So you
It's
scream
personal.
at a kid, horrible shot, Jimmy. Well, I just stole Jimmy's confidence from him a little bit.
And the number lessens that. You know, hey dude, that's a one. You know that's a one. And
Takes the
everybody
emotion out of it. I
takes the
always like,
emotion out of it.
Jimmy, rate
It's
that shot. Oh, coach, that was a 6 for us as a contested jump shot. Like, I think you're right. Let's just be a little more patient for sevens. No, he doesn't suck. I don't hate him. Like we can move past it really quick.
and he gave you the answer. It's even
Yep.
better.
Yep.
You know, we sat down on a board like the first time we did it, and we rolled out a big board to the gym, and we essentially asked the kids to get us there. What's a good shot? What's a bad shot? So, like we describe a play. This guy gets in the paint. He pitches out to the corner. What is this? Oh, that's a great shot, coach. Okay. So if the best shot we can get is a 5, then we're going to call this a 5, right? And then I drew a kid getting to the lane with the guy on his hip, finishing a shot or finishing a layup. What's that? That's a really good shot. It's a 5. You're darn right it is. Then hey, we got fouled. What is that? No one's guarding me. I'm shooting free throws. That's 5 too. So okay. So we started defining this as a team, and then it's really easy. Then that's where the team accountability comes into play, where it's like, dude, we need a 5 here, and they can the I feel like really high cultured groups can talk to each other, and
Mm.
it's really fun to see when it's like, hey, we need a better one. You're right. You're right. We need a 5 next time down. And
Yep.
when that started to click, it was so much fun because me and Cleve would look at each other like, hey, we didn't have to say anything there. That was awesome.
I love that.
So yeah, we're on the same page with that. It's you've got to define what a good and a bad shot is.
Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Ballology. What's your BSA score? The Ballology Skills Assessment is the only verified skills metric endorsed by the NAIA, NJCAA, and a growing number of NCAA coaches to discover and develop the best talent for your team. This 4-minute, 40-shot test can be taken free today on the Ballology mobile app. Elevate your game. One thing that I'm really interested in learning about, I want to be better for my players, is helping them in the recruiting process. And because there's been times over the years where I know how important select ball is in that process for players, and I've almost felt like, you know what, it's all on them. Like I'll train them during the year, I'll help them with their skill, we'll help them to work with a team, but then being a college player is all about the spring and summer and that team that they play on. How can we as high school coaches help our players more in the recruiting process?
I think cultivating relationships, and that starts in understanding the levels. I'll be honest, like when I was coming um, from high school coach to GASO, like understanding the intricacies of kind of what my player was to what I thought he was a big difference. So understanding that, and I'm sure so many coaches understand that, stood that at such a higher level than me because I only had 6 years of experience. But a lot of these coaches have had and seen kids go to schools at different levels. But I'd say understanding the levels and then cultivating the relationships, reaching out on behalf, sitting down before the year and saying, do you want to be all in, playing basketball? Do you know what this looks like? Is this something like that actually fits your lifestyle. Like, are you going to have time for this?
Yeah.
You know, helping them understand those things. And then going to bat for them, man. Like, at the end of the day, we're going to try our best. Like, as GASO, we're going to try our best to connect as many kids as we can with colleges that we see fit. But at the end of the day, it's still not enough. And having these relationships, understanding the levels, it will bring a lot of credibility to you with their parents, with the college coach that you're bringing the kid to. Like, there's so many. Yeah, I guess I'll just say understanding the levels is a great place to start,
Yeah.
because if you understand the levels, you know who to contact, you know who to reach out to, you know what's realistic. You can set those expectations. You can say, hey, here's what this looks like at this place.
And like, just so I know, like, are you guys? I know you're available and approachable, and so is Blue and Sam, all those guys. But is this something too? Because there's times where I'm just not sure, and I love to get like a second opinion on, hey, where do you think, based on this player, where do you think he could go? Like, what level? Because one of the things I don't want to do, like, I had a player, coach, could you? This was a couple of years, like, what contacts do you have? Like, he was almost interviewing me. This is one of my own players, and I was like, well, what do you mean? He's like, well, Baylor. Like, could you contact Baylor? And I said, absolutely, I could. I think because Coach Drew is so amazing, I could text him and he could respond back. But that's completely different than, will I contact him for you? Because if I know that it's not a level that you're on, like, I can't do that. I can't. No amount of a relationship will catapult a player far beyond really where the level he is.
Right.
So I think those are the difficult. I need help with that sometimes.
Sure. No, and I think that's totally fair. And like, Sam has 25 years experience, Blue has over 20. Those guys know, man. And
Yeah.
like, they are definitely the resident of these guys. Like, at the end of the day, if we're like talking about a kid, I'm succumbing to what they think because they know. And I'm still learning in this game, right? So that is just something I've seen that's so, like I said, Blue is approachable. I'm approachable. Yes, reach out. We will give you our opinion. It's, again, at the end of the day, it's subjective, and you probably should trust them over me. But it's part of the process. And then once you do get a level fit, then you go to bat for that kid. Cleve Ryan's son just signed with Hendricks, and awesome deal, man. And that was the correct level for him. And Hendricks is a place, man. We know the coaching staff over there; they're great people, and it just was a fit on so many levels. And Cleve, obviously, it's his son, but it's also his player. He went to bat. We found the level that he was on, and he had those conversations with those coaches. He sent game film. He did a lot of those things to help cultivate the relationship and help cultivate what could be in it, and it worked out the right way. It takes a lot more work on the side of the player and coach, I think, than most people realize.
Yeah, and
You know, the,
I do like the idea of the term going to bat for. Like, I understand, and I do think we need to be, when if a coach contacts us about a player, we need to be getting back to that coach. There should never be a non-response, no matter what you think of even the player, because sometimes, I mean, I've told players in the past, like, with behavior or work ethic or things like that, or grades, like, you need to put me in the best position possible if somebody reaches out about you, because, one, I'm not going to lie. I'm going to tell the truth. So I want to be able to tell the truth, and it really make you look good, and be a positive thing for you. So I get the idea of going to bat. Where I sometimes struggle, because I'll read these things on Twitter, coaches saying, or parents saying that, the high school coach or whoever didn't go to bat for my kid. I don't know if that's always true, or, as coaches, I think we're truth tellers, or we have to be truth tellers. And if we tell someone that this is really maybe the level that you're at, but they don't like that, is that an example of us not going to bat for them?
I think at the end of the day, like that creeps into your credibility too, though. So I think you never have to remember anything if you tell the truth all the time. And if I like what you said, hey, put me in the best position to brag about you and to love on you, because you have to tell them the truth, and those questions are going to be asked,
Hmm.
plain and simple.
The speed round is one of my favorite things to take guys through because I'll get to know even more about you here in a second. You ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Favorite ice cream flavor?
Cookie two step.
You and Dan Lee, I believe. I think it's him.
We can
Um,
hang out and have some cookie two step,
yeah,
man.
yeah. For high school, shot clock or no shot clock?
I'm for it. I think it'd make the pace
You
of play pick up,
paused.
but
You
huh?
paused.
It's just a hot button issue, and I think you as a coach you play within the boundaries that you're given.
Yeah.
I think a shot clock would raise individual skill level. I think you'd have to because you'd have that guy who's shot clock hero. That's totally what I
Mm.
would have been, Baylor.
But the better teams will probably win more often.
Agreed, 100%. Just it's possessions, it's math.
Yep. Texting or talking?
Talking, and that's something Blue's been on me about. He's like, Mass, you get in front of him, make a phone call.
Nice.
And I think it's just my generation of texting, and I'm really literate on it. And I think it's really easy. It's like respond when you want to
Mm.
respond. But I think at the end of the day, talking cultivates.
Mm. Favorite holiday?
Christmas.
Invisibility or super strength?
Invisibility.
Hmm.
I'd
If
love
you
to see
could,
my kid at daycare. Like my wife and I talk about that all the time.
that's funny. If you could travel back in time, what period would you go to?
Speed round. I'm not doing very speedy work. Probably the beginning of marriage.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Favorite place to travel?
Probably Disney World. It's pretty awesome, man.
You're younger than me, so I may not know the show. A favorite childhood TV show?
Boy Meets World.
Okay, I do know that one. That's good. Two more. How many cups of coffee do you drink per day?
Two. One in the morning, one at lunch.
Nice. And then probably the most important, I've shifted it a little bit over time. Godfather, Star Wars, or neither.
Star Wars.
Nice. The force is strong. Good answer. Good answer. I really enjoyed this talk. I really enjoyed getting to learn more about you, and your journey to GASO. And also, I think we do align in a lot of ways, basketball wise, how it should be
For sure.
played and everything.
For
But
sure.
thank you so much for your time.
Hey man, I loved it. I'll talk basketball with you anytime. Seriously, like I think we do align. I need to go see a Grapevine Faith game. That's been Blues domain lately. So,
He does
but
come to some of ours. I love seeing him there.
I'm gonna tell him that's me next year. So
Nice.
we'll both come. We'll come together. That'll be good.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about like what are some maybe are there any new directions or new things that like I don't know if a lot of people know about the Gasso podcast and kind of what you're doing. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, we've got a lot of initiatives right now. We're working. The GASO cast is the big one. It's our YouTube show, and we do a lot of like kind of mini series on our Twitter. We're also going to be rolling out GASO All Access, which is going to be paid subscription where we're dropping content like all the time, just little things. And then we have our newsletter that's kind of a wrap up of the last 2 weeks. It goes out the first and third Fridays every month. You can get that and catch up with the high school, grassroots, everything, commitments, rankings. We do all of our stuff on there and we send it out every couple of weeks. But yeah, man, we try and stay up to date the best we can. We miss a lot. Like it's darn near
It's a big
impossible.
state.
It's a big state, but we try our best to see as many kids as possible. And we try and go into a game unbiased, man. That's the last thing we want to do is tell people a story that didn't happen.
Mhm.
We see that a little too much on the Twitterverse, and we want to go in and tell the story honestly. And
Yeah.
if the best player that was supposed to be the best player didn't play that well tonight, we're gonna talk about who did play that well. And that is our goal, man. We are for all kids, and no bias here, man. We just want to help kids do the best that they can and get them places they want to be.
Yeah, and I just for anybody that does listen and ever wonders about the rankings, you hear things, oh, it's politics, oh, it's this or that. I can't speak for any other ranking systems that are out there, but so as far as GASO is concerned, because I know one who started it all is one of the greatest human beings with Coach Kunstad that I've ever been around. Just so from his leadership and culture that he developed, and then to the guys, the quality of guys that you have working there. I mean, I always feel like I have a lot of peace with the feedback that I get from you guys on players, or if our players do end up being on your list 1 through 250, I don't care where they are. Like I tell my guys, like, that's a huge accomplishment and not something to be taken lightly. So I really appreciate what you guys do for Texas basketball and for athletes and for the coaches in schools. It's really cool.
Hey man, we appreciate it. And like I said, you may disagree with them, but we're trying to be as honest as possible and just go with what we've seen. And, there's a chance that all three of us have seen you. If I'm talking to a player here and you didn't necessarily play well and you're better than what you're ranked. Yeah. Could that happen? Absolutely. It's a big state, like you said. But our goal is to try and be as honest as possible. And I appreciate you saying that because it's something we strive to do. And that's some of the leadership of Sam and Coach Kunstad. Like, they give me all my credibility, man.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the Jamodi podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.